What's up, everyone, and welcome to the biggest little soccer podcast on the internet. And of course, it can only be Stateside Footy. I am your host, Steve Silver, and of course, tonight I'll be joined by Adam Turner, USMNT Stan on the old Twitter sphere. I hope everyone is having a fantastic evening, especially out there on the West Coast, as of course my beloved Seattle Sounders FC take on the big bad LAFC tonight in the US Open Cup semifinals. It's going to be a fantastic show tonight, and of course, as soon as Adam joins the show, we'll get this rig rolling proper. Going over tonight's show, of course, we're going to be discussing some of those expectations that has been heaped upon the U.S. men's national team ever since the news that one Mauricio Pochettino has decided to take control of it. We'll also be talking a little MLS today, and of course, because my beloved Seattle Sounders FC are in hunt for their 5th U.S. Open Cup championship. In order to do that, though, they have to take down the big bad Los Angeles FC, those hated sons of bitches out there on the West Coast. But other than that, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. If you want to be a part of tonight's show, all you have to do is drop a comment into the comment section. Obviously, those will be put on screen, and you're more than welcome to be a part of tonight's conversation. Also, make sure that you smash the like and subscribe button. That would also be very much appreciated. So we're coming into a very, very unique week because after the third week of the European schedule, we come to the first international window, and it's going to be quite interesting because allegedly Mikey Varas is supposed to be taking the reins for these friendlies. But that being said, he was also just named as the new manager of San Diego FC, which is supposed to come online next year, which was interesting timing, if you ask me, because, well, that's kind of to me, that's kind of a big chore, if you'll ask me. I don't think you have time to run some friendlies and also be in the mix to, make sure that your roster takes shape as you're coming into your inaugural season. But I don't know, man. Does he have the multitasking skills in order to get that done? We're about to find out. And of course, we're also going to find out how much Mauricio Pochettino is going to be involved with this upcoming friendly. And of course, now joining me on the show is Adam Turner. What's going on, man?
What's up, Steve? How's it going?
Oh, I can't complain, man. Just getting ready for the good old semifinal action of the U.S. Open Cup. My beloved Seattle Sounders are taking on those LAFC. And now, it is what it is. It's the U.S. Open Cup. But that being said, the Sounders have already faced LAFC 3 times this year and have shipped 8 goals to LAFC while we've only managed 1. That being said, though, Jordan Morris is absolutely on fire, scoring 8 of his last 13. But it is MLS, so, you're going to ship goals regardless.
Yeah, it's been I feel like I was kind of following the matchups, and feels like it's been the opposite of LAFC's matchups with Columbus, which have gone like the complete opposite direction for them.
Well, Seattle's in a weird spot because, like, literally 5 years ago, you could have made the argument that they were the best team in Major League Soccer. It's amazing what 5 years can do, because it seems like they're settling into mid-table mediocrity. COVID really, the COVID lockdown really kind of, in a better sense of the word, man, it really screwed this team over, because we lost our majority owner. Chris Henderson, our scouting director, took off to Miami. Obviously, you know what Miami looks like now. and we lost our general manager to Atlanta United. So now we just have mediocre GM making mediocre mistakes, and now all of a sudden this once proud MLS franchise has basically been mediocre. It's basically just mediocre across the board.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I was kind of looking a little bit at it. So you guys had you're top 3, right, in the West last year. But then the year before was like a total downslide, if I remember right.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. We we mailed out for the CONCACAF Champions League. We won it, but that was the year that was the end of Nico Lodero in Seattle, and that should have been they should have taken the opportunity just to hit the reset button all the way, and get rid of some guys that had been around and free up some cap space, free up some DP spots, and just hit the reset button, rebuild. And had they done that, you're probably looking at this summer transfer window of them putting on the finishing touches and making themselves ready for the 2025 Club World Cup. But instead, they extended players that they probably shouldn't have, and now we're third straight window where we have no incomings or outgoings, and this team is exactly what it is, man. It's just this core has gotten old, so it is what it is, man. And as much as I would love to see Seattle finally get one this year against LAFC, I just don't see it, especially after the League's Cup, man. After after Wilfred Nancy absolutely dummied LAFC for the second time, you would probably expect LAFC is going to throw the entire kitchen sink at us tonight. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like you always will expect the best out of a team, especially a good team, after they have a disappointing loss, right? Like, you're not going to catch them off guard. I'll tell you that.
No, that's exactly right.
They're not going to be like post celebration, right? Like, they're going to be like hungry to go get a trophy. So,
and I'm of the belief that Brian Schmetzer is night and day better of a coach than Steve Cherundolo. But the reality is, look at what's at Cherundolo's disposal versus what Brian Schmetzer has. I mean, like, literally, we have the hottest striker, but outside of that, it's like, whatever. So first and foremost, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, and we're going to get this rig rolling. We're going to start off tonight with some quick news and notes surrounding the U.S. men's national team, and we're going to start off in England because Matt Turner is in a world of hurt, man. Reduced to the third string keeper there at Nottingham Forest. Now there has been some news regarding that. A few teams have inquired about Matt Turner. They have offered some loan deals, but Nottingham Forest says, you know what, we're not interested in loan deals. We want this to be permanent. And this couldn't come at a worse time because, as you know, the U.S. men's national team has 3 young goalies who are playing and who are playing well right now. And I don't know how you feel about the goalkeeper situation, but I think it's time to hit the reset button on that position. You have, Gaga Slonina, who is repping up right now for Barnsley in League One. Patrick Schulte, best young goalkeeper in Major League Soccer right now for the U.S. And of course, they might even make a move for Diego Cochin to bring him into this upcoming cap tie him. I just feel like right now is probably a better time than any to hit that reset button. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I said the same thing a couple weeks back, and it was like, at this point with keeper, I would figure out who the veteran is that you feel like you can rely on. Maybe that's Turner. Maybe it's not. In all honesty, at this point, I think we can all kind of say that, right? I don't think he's 100% out. I think we saw a really nice performance in the Brazil game. But other than that, it's been a lot of pretty mediocre performances. I think he lost the magic, right? Like, I think that it's more of like a hockey thing, but like the hot goalie in hockey, right? I think that was a little bit of what happened with Turner in that late kind of, revolution era where he was just like stopping every shot that came at him. And it was like insane. And it carried over into that Gold Cup 2021. Luckily it actually carried over into World Cup qualifying pretty nicely as well for us. But he's kind of lost his mojo since he went to Arsenal. I feel like he went to Arsenal, didn't play, and lost a lot of the rhythm and feel that comes from like being a keeper day in and day out. Goalie is not a position. I played keeper growing up. It's a tough position to not play, right? I remember like my sophomore year, I like sat behind, an older, more experienced keeper, the whole year. And then like I would get in at the end of like some blowouts and play pretty bad. And it's just like hard, man. Like it's hard when you don't have game reps and you're like stepping in, and it just, for some reason, right? I played in the field a little bit as well. It's like way different coming off the bench in the field, way different coming off the bench as a basketball player, which I did as well. For some reason, keeper, just like tough spot to not have any game reps. So I don't know. Since that Arsenal stretch, I just feel like it's been pretty up and down for him. And I think the weaknesses really are starting to show if he's not going to be like an absolute world-class shot stopper.
Right. I think this timing is absolutely terrible because, as you know, Mauricio Pochettino likes to play out of the back. And as we saw, that Matt Turner is not exactly the greatest goalie with the ball at his feet playing out of the back. So, I just look at this as an opportunity for them to, we're coming in friendlies. This isn't a tournament where you have your starting 11 locked. This is the time where you actually bring in those younger goalies to get a look and also make a good first impression for Mauricio Pochettino. He prefers working with young players anyways that are young and hungry. And Matt Turner's 30, but I would probably assume that I don't think he's done with the national team either. I just think this should be an opportunity where you basically say, hey, listen, until you get your club situation figured out, dude, we can't bring you in camp.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we could get coaching to commit to a camp,
100%.
I mean, listen, that would be a coup at this point. I would love it. I would be all over him. If I was U.S. Soccer, I'd be all over him. I'd be
for sure.
Games, I'd be trying to figure out any way I could get him to commit. And I tweeted this out the other day, and it got some pushback fairly, right? You don't often see a 20-year-old keeper in a World Cup. It's pretty rare, or in any major competition. But I think like if they're good enough and your pool is weak enough, right? And or I guess, right? One or the other, which I think would be a little bit of a combination, right? If he develops enough in the next 2 years, because the thing about the next 2 years, right? Like full club seasons is like he could be on the cusp of like maybe not being Barca's keeper, but maybe being sold to a really high level club to be a starting keeper in a top 5 league. That could be a reality in a year and a half. And I would hate it if we're like being reactionary at that point. To your point, when we have plenty of camps that don't really matter that much, plenty of camps to bring him in as a third keeper, especially, right? And just get him in the mix. Definitely a lot of reps in low-level games that don't matter to like throw him in. Like, why not? There just isn't a ton of reason why not. I wouldn't put all my hopes in him because I don't think at 20 there's a great chance that he'll be the guy. But to your point, like we should be, throwing darts against the wall at this point, right? Like we should get our 4 or 5 best darts and start throwing them and figure out, who are the best options here. And I don't think we need to play it safe. We can always play it safe at the end of the day, right?
Right.
It's not going to be
the Ethan Horvaths of the world. And that's why I think Gaga Slonina is eventually going to be the starter this year. He's in League One with Barnsley, and if he actually has that type of season where he has 10 plus clean sheets, and he's one of the reasons why they get promoted to the championship, he's going to get that move to a bigger level. And if at the start of the 2025, 2026 seasons, he's playing in any one of the 5 best leagues in the world, and having that momentum coming into 2026, I can see a situation where Pochettino goes with Slonina as the number 1. But that being said, Patrick Schulte profiled this summer in the Olympics, and the only reason why I personally think he started over Slonina, not because he was better, but I think this was a showcase event to see if they possibly could get a move for him overseas to jumpstart that as he can make a move within the U.S. men's national team goalkeeper ranks. Yeah.
Slonina, I mean, listen, Slonina, I've watched one game. I saw the highlights he posted from another, and he looks solid, right? He
looks solid, man.
He looks solid. I don't want to overreact. I want to see a whole season for sure, especially with keeper, right? Things can go real quickly, but like, I think the tools have always been there. I've always liked the tools. It's like, is he going to get game time at a high enough level to be prepared and kind of ready? And that's what this season is for him, right? It's like, it's a high level, right? It's a good club level. And I would be okay with that being MLS too, right? Like it could be a number of different levels. And I'll kind of circle that back to Matt Turner, like circle the wagons here back to Matt Turner. Like the loan stuff, I don't love, man. Like, it's better than nothing. It's better than sitting on the bench. So yes,
absolutely.
But like, I would love it if he got sold back to the MLS, right? I really think that for Turner's age and stage, just playing every day and recapturing the magic of what he can be as a shot stopper is going to maximize who he is. He's just not in his late 20s. He's not developing some magic sauce with the ball at his feet. It's just like, be who you are and be the best version of who you are. And then
exactly,
if the manager needs that skill set, at least you're in form and you're ready to go.
You know, and I 100% agree with you. You can still have an impact with the national team playing in Major League Soccer, especially as a goalkeeper.
Definitely.
The only problem is the MLS window shut already. So the only way that Turner gets the MLS is if Nottingham Forest literally just terminates his contract and he can come in as a free. And I don't see Nottingham Forest just eating the money like that.
I think the MLS path would be the winter window, right? It would be like nothing happens now for them. They're really committed to selling. They're not going to loan him out, or maybe they loan him out and then recall him to sell him. That could happen as well. They could put that clause in. But you're right. Like he's not going to MLS now for sure. But that's kind of where I wish he would have landed, right? In an ideal world, I just think like comfort level matters too, right? Like that's the thing a lot of us, including me, don't always take into account is like sometimes you're just 29 and you're like, man, I just kind of want to go home. And it's like, is it the best for field players' development at that age and stage? Like maybe not, but like if you're not going to be like, I truly believe Landon Donovan could have been a successful European player.
Oh, 100%.
I just don't think it was in his heart. Like I really don't. I think like living in Europe full time at that time for him, he wasn't. So it's like how was the USMNT going to get the best Landon Donovan, right? Given all scenarios, right? We don't live in a idealistic world where human emotions don't play in, right? Like who you are, your emotions, being emotionally stable and happy matters. You were always going to get the best Landon if he was in MLS. It's just, and there was no need because he was getting the bag in MLS anyways. He was playing in his hometown, and the most important thing, he was happy, and that translated to the national team in a big way as well too. Yeah. Turning to France in League One, there's a problem with our striker position because Florian Balogun, who I absolutely love, I still do believe come 2026 he's going to be the starting striker. But right now, something is not wrong. Something is not right in Monaco. After starting the season, he was benched. As a matter of fact, he was on the bench this last weekend. Never got in. As a matter of fact, the striker that they brought in was the 18-year-old that Monaco just brought in. Since he made this move to Monaco, it really just hasn't worked out as it did when he was with Stade Reims just 2 years ago. And again, the timing couldn't be worse because Josh Sargent is ripping it up in the championship right now. Even Ricardo Pepi, who's playing behind De Jong there in PSV, he's still at least seeing the field, and he scored his first goal this last week as well too. You also have Jordan Morris, as I mentioned, who's in the pool, and he's red hot right now in Major League Soccer. And this is almost the same thing with Matt Turner. Now, I don't get wild and crazy when it comes to transfers with members of the U.S. men's national team. But that being said, for a guy who, it took to get to come to the U.S. men's national team, this dude has to be playing, and he has to be playing well. It just doesn't seem like he's in form. And maybe it's time to pull the plug on this Monaco experiment. We know that he can play in that league, but for whatever reason, something hasn't translated since making the jump from Arsenal to Monaco, and it has me concerned, especially coming up for this upcoming camp. It's almost the same situation where if you're not playing, and you're not in form, I don't even think you can even come in. And again, like I just mentioned before, man, Josh Sargent is getting off to one of the hottest starts in the championship. So to me, this to me is 100% concerning. Yeah, totally fair concern. Who knows kind of what the club match is. And, there's so many competing interests in this game, right? Like we see that with the Tessman scenario before he made his move, right? Like, it wasn't that they didn't think Tessman could help them. They obviously did. They just really wanted to sell him, right? And then it becomes a posturing game. So I always just wonder, like, what's going on behind the scenes. And I don't think this is a sell thing, but I'm just using that as an example of like the games that are played, right? Sometimes it's a manager thing, right? Managers like a player
100%.
doesn't rate them, and I don't know, like maybe they're trying to coach them up in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know. I saw his first game, which was a little over a week ago, and I thought he was okay. I mean, wasn't great, but it wasn't like a horrific start. He had 3 or 4 shots, and like, I don't know. Like, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they're not obviously 100% all in on him in the way that they're just going to like let him roll. I think they're trying to push him. But I mean, yeah, listen, coming off last year and then already seeing him be fully benched, it's a totally fair worry, right? I'm going to let it ride out here for a couple more months and see, but the flags are up, right? I mean, the flags are up, and like, like we don't want our best talent at that position to have another year where they're kind of in and out and not getting, kind of a full commitment from a club. It's not ideal, right? Because once again, we saw it in Copa America this year. If your most talented guys are in spots where they're not playing a lot, it certainly can have an impact on their performance, like no doubt.
I wasn't a big fan of Greg Berhalter and his incessant need to bring in guys that literally weren't playing at the time or were playing limited time, bringing guys that weren't in form. And I don't know, man. I just feel like, Mauricio Pochettino has to draw a line in the sand and say, listen, dude, if you're like a baseline, if you're not playing, you're not coming into camp. It doesn't mean you're not a part of the team. It just means like, I want to bring in guys who are currently in form, who are going to be able to, to give me the max effort, against Canada. And I just think that just like Matt Turner, it's like, I like Flo, man. I really do. It's just right now I kind of like Josh Sargent a lot more, and I don't understand why people are sleeping on the kid. Last year in a half a season due to injury, he scored 15. This year he's already got 3 in 3 games. And it's not like the championship is a scrub league. As a matter of fact, it's an incredibly hard league to get promoted out of, considering that most of those teams played in the Premier League. The top 15 at least played in the Premier League within the last 6 years. So all of them got balloon payments, right? So all of them have the financial wherewithal to make sure that they have balance between offense and defense. And Josh Sargent is literally just lighting up the championship. For the short term, I'd rather have him starting for the national team until one of two things happens with Flo, whether he finally gets formed and starts starts lighting the lamp there in France, or you know what I mean, or he ends up moving. So
yeah, I think so. I differ. I don't differ in that Sargent shouldn't get a chance. I actually think Sargent should get a chance, and I think the next 2 camps are a perfect opportunity to get him starts, right? Like no doubt.
Sure.
I think that if we had so 2 different competing things going on, right? One is like, what do we do with the friendlies? To me, I actually want to play around with a lot of different things, right? I hope
100%.
And I hope the management team, I'll call it, right, because it's going to be different guys. It seems like hopefully it's Poch by October, but like I hope that they are like, hey, we want to experiment with some different formations, some different front lines, some different guys up there playing together, and kind of like just start to see what works. I think without a doubt, Sargent's starting to prove that like he's going to have a future with the national team. I think that's starting to become pretty clear. His next move is going to be a big one, because I think much like the move that Flo just made, if he makes a move to the wrong type of team and starts to, get cold, and oftentimes it's like, with strikers, there's some luck involved as well. It's not all 100% skill based. And then it's like, oh, he's not scoring. Let's put him on the bench. You're a bottom 6 team in a top 5 league, and you don't get that many opportunities. And that's kind of what, when I used to watch him right in Germany, I always thought like, I can't tell if he's good or not. Like the team literally never plays in the final third. So it's like, it's not like
if they were playing him, they were playing him on the right, and they were playing him out of position.
Right. And then he started playing on the right. Then he moved to the Prem and started playing on the right a lot. And it was kind of out of position and wasn't allowed to play up top. And listen, like, since we've seen him play, the data I have on Sargent is this: when he was really young, he was awesome, right? When he was on,
Yeah.
USMNT teams that could score, he was awesome. When he played youth ball, he was awesome. When teams could produce opportunities, right? Play progressively, he scored, right? We saw him for years either play for teams that were anemic offensively or B, weren't playing him at striker. And then he gets back to striker and pretty much immediately catches fire. 2 seasons ago, last season, right? This season. So all we've seen is success when he's playing. Once again, they're one of the top teams in the championship in terms of just talent, right? They came down from the Prem and they were, ready to go. Obviously, they didn't get promoted, but like they're a really good team at that level, especially with chance creation. And the dude scores, man. So I'm with you on that. I do think, to me, Flo, this is just my eval, and it sounds like you have a similar eval in terms of your like of Flo. Is Flo's a Ferrari, right? And Sargent is like a really reliable, right, nice car. I don't want to I'll put a brand on it and somebody will get mad, right? But like
Toyota Camry.
Sure, yeah, like totally reliable, right? Or like
totally reliable.
Yeah, or like a nice Toyota SUV or a Subaru, right? Like you know what you're getting out of him, and it's like it's good, right? And nobody's like hating on a really sturdy Subaru, but the upside, right? You also know what you're probably not, and I don't want to put a total ceiling on Sargent's upside. I really don't. I just think Flo's upside is really high. I think you have a very legit point, which is right now we're not seeing it for sure.
Yeah.
But in the summer, I mean, he was probably the only guy, in my opinion, who looked like he belonged on the field at times, right? Like
for sure,
a little bit, it's one of those things that that's the tough part, right? Is the new managers are gonna have to figure out come the spring when we have some competitive matches, what do guys look like for club, right? I'm not an absolutist in any direction. I never have been, right? I'm not absolutist against like us having some MLS guys who are going to impact the roster at some point.
For sure.
I don't see it currently, but like I'm not an absolutist against it, right? Some people are. Some people are like, no way, never.
Yeah.
I'm also not an absolutist that like guys can't be playing and be the best option, right? They could. Right. It happens in international soccer. You don't want 5 or 6 of those, right? Like I think in an ideal world, listen, if like Pulisic's getting benched by Chelsea, I was always in the corner of I don't care, play him, right? Is Flo Pulisic? No, but that's going to be the challenge of the next manager, right? Is like, man, Flo's coming in and out for Monaco, Sargent's killing the championship. Which of these guys deserves it, right? Who's going to actually perform?
Right. And that's the thing. It's like because these are friendlies, this isn't, Gold Cup. This isn't Nations League. This isn't Copa America, the World Cup, right? These are friendlies, right? That's why I don't have a problem if Jordan Morris is a part of this camp. He's in form and he's red hot right now in Major League Soccer. There is something to that. But I'll just say this, though, that Josh Sargent, 2 things are going to happen to Josh Sargent after this season. If he can add 10 more goals to his tally from last year and get into that 25 to 30 range this year in the championship, and he stays healthy and he helps Norwich get promoted to the Premier League, he's either going to be playing in the Premier League next year with Norwich, or he's going to be playing in the Premier League with some other team, because those type of, that's what everybody is waiting for, just to see if he can finish the season healthy and feature in at least 30 games this year and put up large numbers. He was already linked with Bournemouth within the last 2 weeks. Until Bournemouth went out and got Evan Nielsen from Sporting, which basically, took away that opportunity for him. But just the fact that he's already being linked with a Premier League team kind of shows you the respect that he's got.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a dirty secret. I don't think I've ever shared this on Twitter. Yeah,
that you're a Clint Mathis fan.
Yeah, I am a Clint Mathis fan. That's very true. So here's the thing, right? Here's what I always struggle with. You're Josh Sargent. You're absolutely killing it at a club and at a level. And you're like really finding success, right? And I don't know if this is 100% true with Sargent, but we can all, if you follow the national team, this has happened with a number of our guys, right? They find Malik Tillman's another good example, right? Yeah. Right now, he's just had a really good run at PSV. Is it the highest level in the world? No.
No.
Should he move up, and does moving up and then succeeding at that next level up make him better? Yes. But there is such inherent risk in all of those moves, right? I kind of alluded to this
100%.
before when I said with Sargent, like, you make a move, you go to the Prem, especially if it's a new club, right? Let's live in the world where it's an actual transfer. New club, new environment, new manager. Maybe that manager gets fired very quickly. Then you're not the guy that the current manager brought in for the position. Like, there's all these things that are factors, and you can't avoid them anywhere. I get that. But like when you move up that level, when Tillman moves up that level, and I'm not fully advocating for guys to not do it. I'm just going to pose a dirty secret that runs through my head sometimes, which is sometimes I'm just like, man, what if like the move for Sargent was to like, play in the Netherlands or the championship, whatever, right? But like, what if the move was just like, I am going to be a freaking awesome Eredivisie striker for my whole career. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to score 15 to 20 goals a year, right? And I'm going to be in form at all times, right? And I'm going to be a level above MLS, right? In terms of like, some of my competition, a level below top 5, wherever you consider that. That's kind of it's a
you're right there. You're right there in the. I was going to say, you're right there in the sweet spot.
It's the sweet spot, man. And like, I just know that if all these guys go to the top level, right, and I still think they should, because I do think it's how we maximize. I think it's how anybody maximizes potential is you go to a top level and you test yourself and you figure it out. But man, it can, like, we already saw it set Sargent back, right? He had a couple years there where he was just like, geesh. Like, this guy is stagnated. Pepe's kind of going through that right now, unfortunately, in the Eredivisie, right? Where it's just like he's not playing enough. Like, yeah. So
and that's also somebody who probably should think about making a move, because as long as he's playing behind De Jong, dude, he's only gonna see starts like in cup matches and stuff like that. But
and let me say one more thing, Steve. One more thing. You have to settle by the time you're 25, 26. That's the thing, right? Like, I think that's what I really love about the Pulisic Milan move. And I was like an advocate for that move for like 3 years. I was like pushing Milan, and I was so happy you win. It was like one of the one things I got right? Like, I get a lot wrong, but I was like, yes, I knew it. I knew that level, that club. Like, that just seemed like Pulisic's sweet spot, right? Not top 10 spending clubs in the world, right?
But also. Yeah, but that move to Chelsea was one of the worst things he can do. There's a couple other players that came through that Chelsea team around the same time as Pulisic and just said that there was a million different things pulling in a million different directions. Crazy. It wasn't good for any player.
They were bringing. They brought in absolute studs and talent, man, across the board. Like, I loved almost all the guys they brought in. I loved in terms of at their previous spots. I was like. Love Timo Werner, right? It was so good.
Yes. That's the thing. It's like I still think Timo Werner is that dude that scored 28 goals 3 years ago at Red Bull Leipzig, right? He goes to Chelsea, and just like Pulisic, he wanted to do well there, but that was such a toxic environment at Chelsea that it actually ended up stunting his career.
No doubt. Oh my gosh, like all these guys, and we could literally sit here and do a pod on Chelsea 2020 to 2023. It's like insane. Like, that run is the amount they spent, the amount of sheer talent they brought in. And most average fans, I think, look at it and go, well, that's just a failure of coaching of all the coaches. And I'm like, there's just something deeper, because they had really good coaches too. Like, across the board, they got really good coaches. 100%. They got really good players. And somehow, like, it was always, to me, that always points to ownership. It just always does. It's like something 100%. Is not letting this awesome manager do their job.
Too many hands on it.
The players get into the right. Their players are just never used correctly. Like, even Werner, right? Like, he's like I won't.
Yeah,
he's the channel striker, and you're using him in other ways. It's like, you just saw the guy score 28 goals playing in the channels. And you're trying to do other stuff anyway. But
And what's funny is now he's in Tottenham in the right system, and Ange Postecoglou is using him on the wings, and I'm like, dude, that's never going to work.
I know.
But what's interesting though is like, and dude, outside of Seattle, Tottenham is my squad. But getting back to Sargent, man, I'm actually okay with, and I 100% agree with you, by 24, 25, that you should be starting to come into your prime. And I don't have a problem if he goes up to the Premier League and fails, right? There's been plenty of guys who have had that first, like, that first cup of coffee in the Prem, and it just didn't go their way. Had to dip back down to the championship, and the next time they came up, they were absolutely phenomenal. And I also think that you have to be mature enough to handle those opportunities. And when you're young, sometimes, maybe you're not mentally mature enough to actually handle that opportunity, and it takes failure. You know what I mean? In order for you to, for all those things to click.
No doubt. Lukaku, KDB. I mean, the list is pretty long. Mo Salah, like the list is long. Of guys who like failed in their first, I like the baseball language, cup of coffee, and had to go back down to AAA and work on the swing and figure it out.
That's exactly right, man.
And you have to. I just want to, for anybody out there, right, who's like, man, I think Adam's advocating for like Josh to just go play. I'm not. I'm really not. Like you have to. From a financial standpoint, a career standpoint, you have to go take your shot again for sure. It just always the risk worries me, which is like, do we lose 2 more years, right? Just when he's figuring it out. And a lot of it's just going to be about going to the right spot, honestly.
Correct,
right?
Man.
Right club, right system, right manager. A little bit, you got to get lucky, honestly, in this thing too. You got to get a little lucky that like the manager sticks long enough. The manager who likes you sticks long enough and succeeds enough, right? And playing that bottom half of the table, top 5 game is just tough as a player. It really is.
100%.
Like, you don't 100%. Know you're going to be on a team that gets relegated. It happens all the time, right? 3 teams get relegated out of that bottom 8, 9, 10. Like, unfortunately, that could be your team. The other thing is like managers are shuffled, right? Like so hard at that level, in season, right? Oh man, we're 4 points off relegation. Like we need a new manager to juice it up, right? So like that's another challenge. And then another challenge is like, especially as an attacker, you're just playing for pretty bad teams that like aren't able to advance the ball, in consistent ways. So it's hard to like get rhythm and it's hard to show who you are.
Right. Yeah. I also think it's important for young players to go through the promotion relegation battle, right? Because if you're a team that's on a promotion winning team, you're forced to raise your game to a different level that maybe you didn't even know that you were capable of doing in order to gain promotion. Same thing with relegation. I think it's so vital for a young player to go through those experiences. The worst thing that I think he can do, he had links to Major League Soccer, and I'm glad that didn't come to fruition, because right now Josh Sargent in Major League Soccer, and no disrespect to Major League Soccer, it's just he needs to stay over there. Maybe after 2026, but usually that's like the age 28, 29 move back to Major League Soccer. But for right now, I think that actually would stunt his development by coming back now. To me, I also feel like that's more of a Weston McKennie move, not a Josh Sargent move. But it is what it is. He's Weston reminds me of I get the impression that he would take the bag.
Yeah, it's the money is a game changer, man. Like as a fan, it's really easy for us to be like, gosh, this is what's best for your career and our national team, right? But really it's like, dude, they're offering me 3 times the money.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding me? If somebody came into my house tomorrow and was like, hey man, our company is doing tech consulting, and we know you do that. Do you want to come make 3x as much? Like, yes. It's a lower level tech company. Don't care.
Don't care. Yeah,
money matters, man. Like money matters. Like these guys have, somebody like Wes has 5 years at this point to make the money that he's going to make, that he probably wants to make for the rest of his life to secure it, right? And at the end of the day, it's not like a baseball player or a basketball player where we're talking 20 million versus 30. Like we're talking 2 versus 7. And that's a big difference. It really is.
Absolutely, man. I just think at this stage, right, it would be a bad move for Sargent to come to Major League Soccer now. But
agreed.
Lastly, before we get into it, obviously Tanner Tessman makes the move to Olympic Lyon. This is a great move for him in his career, and especially with Tyler Adams out right now, that position specifically, that door is wide open. Guys like Johnny Cardozo, guys like Tanner Tessman now have a very good opportunity to come in, make a very good first impression with Mauricio Pochettino, and I think this is to go from Venezia, who just got promoted, and now all of a sudden now you're in one of the best teams in France. This is going to do nothing but enhance your career, and especially if he plays well. I like this move, but also John Brooks. Word came out today that he signs a 2-year deal with Hertha Berlin, and so now he goes back to his original club. And I think this is fantastic for the U.S. men's national team, considering center back isn't exactly our strongest position. And now all of a sudden, the guy who has played in a World Cup for you is back in a good club situation. And if he's playing well, I would probably assume that he's probably going to be invited back into camp.
Yeah, playing well is big there, though, right? Like, I think if you're going to play in the 2 Bundesliga, MLS, Austria, Belgium, any of these places, you got to be playing and you got to be playing well. Have to. And even then, it's not a guarantee that the success you have is always going to translate, but at least if you're playing well, which is what we saw out of Walker Zimmerman, I thought last cycle. I got a lot of hate for kind of riding for Zimmerman. I didn't think he was locked in right center back every day, but certainly he was really good for us in certain games, struggled in some games, but for the most part with how Berhalter wanted to play, he was good. And I think that's what John Brooks can be, right? Is listen, I hope guys emerge. I hope we have some guys emerge in the next 2 years, and we don't need placeholders. We don't need an old Tim Ream to hang on. We don't need John Brooks at 32, 33 playing in the 2 Bundesliga to be an option. But unfortunately, that's not where we are with that position, right? We're just not realistic. We're in a spot where the best thing could be John Brooks or Tim Ream or a veteran. And I'm open to all options. It's another spot, kind of like keeper at this point, that just feels very open. Feels like Chris Richards should establish himself in the next 2 years. I'm going to knock on wood with that. It's not, I know.
He's gotten off to a shaky start with Crystal Palace, but I still
he had a pretty shaky summer, which was pretty shocking to me, in my opinion. And that's why I'm knocking on wood here, right? It's not guaranteed, but he has the talent, he has the ability. We saw it last year in the Prem. He should be a guy that is a locked in dude for us. But it's not guaranteed. So that position's up in the air. And then you mentioned the 6, which is another really fascinating one, just from Poch coming in and looking at the roster and going, where are my real battles, right? And I think any good manager is going to make everything a battle to start. But 100%. You're going to know Pulisic's playing. You just are, right? It's just, that's not a surprise. You could pretend like you're not going to do that. It's just kind of fake, right? But the 6, especially with Adams being hurt, and even if Adams wasn't hurt, I think it's a competition. But especially with him being out, right? It's almost listen, guys, you got, 1, 2, 3, I think 3 camps. I think 3 camps, including the I think there's Nations League games in November. Yeah. So 3 camps, 6 games. We're gonna give, I would throw Maloney in that mix too.
100%.
Be hey,
100%.
This is an open comp, guys. Right? Go win it. Go win it. When you get in here to training, you're trying to win a job. You're all gonna get opportunities. Win the job, right? We want to figure out who's the best person for March, right? And then that's our first taste of competitive stuff with the Nations League.
Gold. Yeah, I think we have the Nations League and a Gold Cup next year, right?
And Steve, we talked about striker. We want that with striker. We want that with center back. We want that with the 6. We want that with, I think backup left back. There are some spots, right wing, right midfield. We have a lot of good midfielders. What's that configuration going to be? I would personally not make anyone, hey, you're the guy. I would kind of keep everyone on edge. There are going to be some
100%.
Pulisic, where it's he's probably playing.
Probably.
But, even midfield McKennie, Gio, Tillman, there's enough ambiguity there. And Musa, right? That I'm going, listen, guys, we got 6, 7 of you, and we got 3 spots.
Yep.
It's up to you, right?
It's up to you.
Don't care who you've been, who you were as a prospect, what club you're at. I don't care how you're even playing at that club. Come in here and compete and
correct.
And that's what's going to make us better, right? Is competition 100%. All over the field. And we have a roster. We've been talking about it for an hour now. We have a roster that's ready to compete. We just need the right conditions.
I 100% agree with you, and I also hate to break it to U.S. men's national teams. Probably for the short term, you'll probably see Tim Ream involved at center back. He made the move to Charlotte FC, and he's still gonna deliver those same performances as he did at Fulham. And quite honestly, when it came to the Copa America, as far as center backs are concerned, he was the one that showed the most heart and hustle this summer. And I would probably assume that if you want to have a veteran center back in that group, then I would probably assume that Tim Ream is going to be a part of that conversation for this upcoming cap.
I don't know where else we go, man. Like, I want Austin Trusty to get a chance. There's a lot of guys I want to get a chance, but there's just no guarantees there. Like, we saw that with CCV this summer. Like, I kind of thought I knew the floor CCV was going to set. I really did. I thought, okay, this is like a good floor setter, right? Maybe not the highest ceiling. And then guy was slammed through the floor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, he went, way below.
That's a dude that's gotten way too comfortable in Scotland.
Absolutely.
Especially with the teams that are playing. I would probably venture to say that the top 3 teams in Major League Soccer would dummy pretty much every other team in Scotland outside of Rangers and Celtic.
Way better in my opinion. Way better. I've had these arguments. I argue on like both sides all the time because I don't care and I don't conform to but there's a lot of very kind of pro Europe guys that
I'm both. I'm both MLS and Europe.
And so am I in a lot of ways, and I get penned as a Euro snob a lot, but I've had the argument, right, that because I've watched the games and I'm not going to not share my opinion. I've literally watched the bottom half of Scotland, the bottom half of Austria when Aronson was there, right? And mostly because I watch our guys, right? And that I'm not sitting around watching 16 versus 18 in Scotland. I'm watching Celtic play them. And it's very clear, just as a 1-to-1, not only are the best 3 teams in MLS better than the bottom half of Scotland, I would go way deeper than that.
I would go way deeper than that. Yeah. I would probably venture to say that the only teams that probably couldn't are probably San Jose, Montreal, Vancouver probably would have a hard time in Scotland. But outside of that,
the bottom half of Scotland, it's real bad. And I would suggest if anybody, has assumptions, try and drop your bias and watch it. Because to me, it's just so different than watching 2 mid-level MLS teams. The 2 mid-level MLS teams are so much better than the bottom of Scotland. It's crazy. So it's kind of a weird thing, right? Playing in Scotland, especially if you play for Celtic, right? If you're a defender playing for Celtic, to get back to CCV, you're just one of the really good attacking teams in Scotland are your players, right?
Right? So there's a level of comfortability playing with Celtic, right? Because you're not going to be challenged, right? That's the biggest problem with CCV. As a matter of fact, other teams inquired about him and he said no. He wants to say Celtic was going to sell him anyways. And that's the thing. It's if you're a player and you're comfortable, you're not challenging yourself. And so when you see him at a Copa America and he literally looks like he should not even be anywhere near that team, let alone on the field, that's the reason why. It's you got so complacent being in Scotland.
Yeah, and that's the reminder, right? That when we see performances at any position in any mid-level league, right? That's below, to me, any of those leagues, the second division in Italy, Spain, Germany, all those places are second-tier leagues, right? MLS, and I'm not going to do the argument, but we can argue, MLS is better. I don't care. Second-tier leagues, MLS, second-tier league, Belgium, right? Yeah. Go across the board. If you're comfortable in any of those leagues, there's risk, right? I'm not going to say you can't perform for national team. There is no absolute, but there's just a lot of risk, man. To your point, very easy to get complacent, and complacency is not a good place to be if you need to compete.
Right. Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, Michael Bradley, Jose Altidore, the reason why they were successful is because those dudes never got complacent in Major League Soccer. Those dudes were always working to get better. But so as we shift, we're coming up onto the hour and we're almost done, but I got to ask you this question because, Mauricio Pochettino will be official. I think he's going to be named as head coach probably within this week as we as we get closer to week 3 in Europe. Next week is the international break. And I would think now that Mike Ivaris has been named head coach of San Diego, I would like to think that this thing is going to get wrapped up this week. So he's going to be available for the friendly versus Canada. The expectations of this team, unfortunately, I have them really high. It's unfortunate, but that being said, though, like I remember back when I was like in 2011, 2012, and I was having a conversation, and jokingly I was like, "How awesome would this team be if Jose Mourinho was the head coach?" Right, and then that was when I realized that those top end coaches are just not available for the U.S. men's national team because, quite frankly, it's a risk for them. Because if they get grouped with the U.S. men's national team, effectively their club career is over as a high level coach. So even for money, there's no reason to take that chance. And so when I heard that Mauricio Pochettino, who by the way is a very high level English Premier League manager, is going to take I was literally shocked. Like I understand the timing was very good for him to do this, right? But that being said, though, I was like, holy shit. Like, the dude that took Tottenham to a Champions League final is going to be the manager of my team. And so on. But once that happens, man, expectations go through the roof. And when you consider that this pool has already been labeled the golden generation, and as far as talent goes, that's 100% accurate. But that being said, man, he's going to have a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure to deliver. And some people don't believe that, but it's like, you don't make this higher unless you believe that this is the dude that's going to be able to take you the distance in the World Cup, right? So it is what it is, man. The expectations are unfortunately high. I actually think that's great for this for this team. 100%. I think this is great because, now there's no excuses for this team. You know what I mean? Like Greg Berhalter was the easy excuse, but now there's no excuses. And I think that Mauricio Pochettino is going to get the very best out of this one, but the expectations are what they are, and it's probably quarterfinal or better.
Yeah, I'll talk about the pressure first, right? So, like, the great thing about hiring a manager like this is he's been living in a pressure cooker for a decade plus, right? Like European club soccer, and I think a lot of people, especially if you haven't been there, you don't kind of understand the ins and outs of it. Like, it is like the deepest kind of sports pressure that you can imagine. Imagine like the most pressure-filled, college jobs in America or pro jobs in America. It's what it is. Like, it's what it is. Like, and it's crazy, right? Like you follow it enough that if you have like 3 bad weeks, people are calling for your job. And that's like, 100%. There are not a lot of fan bases and cities in America where that, you can point to maybe a few teams that do that kind of thing here, right? But like at the end of the day,
LAFC just lost their 4th straight final, and Steve Cherundolo is still their head coach. Like no serious team would ever allow him that type of leavay.
Right. And that's
100% accurate, man.
The approach is more like, right, like we'll give you some time, and it's nice. Like having been a professional coach, it's kind of a nice approach. But like, so my point is like the pressure cooker is not going to get to him. This is going to be the least pressurized job. It is 100%. A pressure job, but like he's not going to feel the day-to-day pressure. One, because we as a fan base are going to give him a lot of leeway. We just are. We're going to give him a full year. The first time he might feel any pressure is if our Gold Cup doesn't go the right way, or Nations League maybe in March. But like even that stuff, even like our version of pressure is not going to feel what like PSG and Chelsea, like it's just not going to feel like that. And so I think, one, 100%. We have a guy who's, going to be calm, cool, collected through all that stuff, stay himself, not be swayed by, whatever the pressure is. Secondly, I think that the other thing you touched on that was really good, Steve, is like we have a group of young players who maybe kind of lost their way in this last year and a half since the World Cup.
They were so soft at Copa America. That was the softest I've ever seen this national team. Yeah.
No doubt, including 2018, in all honesty, 2017, which I don't think soft 100%. Was the problem with that team. Being bad was the problem, but like that team actually played pretty hard. But like, so I agree with you, right? I agree with you. We saw that it deteriorated to a point that it was like unrecognizable because honestly, to be frank, like we saw that group under that coach not give that. Right. I didn't love a lot of the World Cup qualifying performances, But
No, I didn't
very,
either.
very rarely in that whole stretch was I like, man, we didn't play hard today, or we had no fire, right? I thought the issues were other things. But like, to get to my point here, right? It's like Poch is a guy that has proven in his career, right? Where has he succeeded? He succeeded when he's had kind of like underdog, chip on your shoulder teams with young players that he's got to bring the best out of, right?
Right.
Where's he failed? I don't even think he failed, but where's he done worse? You know, more veteran kind of set.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
which one are we? I think we're much more the first, right? I think our guys are going to be
100%.
really hungry, chip on your shoulder. They're still young, right? It seems like Pulisic's old because he's played 10 club seasons in Europe, but the dude's 25, right? Like he's still a young player, not kind of entering his prime. This is going to be the kind of team Poch absolutely thrives with in terms of getting the best out of.
100%. Yeah, you know, like when you look at his Tottenham era, you know, he was the one that gave young Sonny an opportunity on the left side. He turned a young, good Harry Kane into a world-class striker. He was the one that turned Dele Alli into a Premier League star. You're talking about Eric Dyer, Kyle Walker,
Christian Eriksen,
right? Young, hungry, and willing to buy into his messaging, right? The only reason why he failed at PSG is because he had a 35-year-old Messi, he had a Neymar who was never healthy, and he had a 34-year-old Angel Di Maria, like guys who were just going to do what they do on a football pitch, and he was there just to deliver the final product. And that's the thing. It's like you can't get that collective to buy in, right? Whereas at Southampton was competitive in every match that they played. Same with Tottenham. And it's like, this is like, when I look at this, it's like, you know, you have a lot of guys who are either not in their prime, about to get to them, or have just started their prime, right? And when you hear about Pochettino's training methods, right? He trains hard, man. Like he requires he requires you to play hard to the whistle, man. And this is something it's something that's desperately needed, because one of the things that we lost along the way was our identity as an American football team. You look at all the World Cups from 1990 all the way on, and the one thing that they always had was grit, man. They had toughness and they had grit, and they weren't going to be outworked, man. And that was at least the cornerstone of the U.S. football. You know what I mean? And that was something that was I thought that was lacking, to say the least, under Greg Berhalter. I think that it was. I really do believe that they were super comfortable with Greg Berhalter, and they weren't getting the most out of what I consider the probably the most talented pool that I've seen in my life.
I think you hit a lot of good things there. The one other thing I'll say this about Poch, right? A lot of people point to the PSG thing. At the end of the day, the goal at PSG, right, when he took over, was like, yo, man, figure the league thing out. But at the end of the day, all PSG really cared about was the Champions League, right?
100%.
So
100%.
if you look at the Champions League, he came in knowing that the job was the Champions League. They were kind of behind the 8 ball in league already at that point.
Yeah.
And they had, remember, if you kind of remember that year, they had a number of injuries that they were dealing with, and he couldn't really go all in on the league to get them back into. That was the year that Lille won. And he couldn't go all in on the league and all in the Champions League. And they made a deep Champions League run to the semi. So they're playing late. And honestly, he was kind of, you know, I went back and looked at it to kind of jog my memory. He was kind of resting guys in league to maximize Champions League, right?
Yeah.
The next year he wins the league. Just remember that, right? So he got them back. Like he got them back to
100%.
winning that league, which they should win that league easily, to be honest, right? So totally fine.
100%.
But where I want to focus on is the Man City semi, which are people, we lost to Man City. He lost to Man City, but he didn't have Messi both legs, and he didn't have Mbappe one leg. You can't tell me if he has a healthy Messi and a healthy Mbappe that doesn't go differently potentially, right?
Well, it all depends though, right? Because sometimes the way he was using Messi, by basically keeping him out wide, basically on the touchline, with a guy who was 34, 35, right? That that dude, his best, obviously the best way to use, Messi is centrally, right? Allowing him to float in and out to the central areas. That's when he's dangerous, right? Sometimes Poch did that. Sometimes Poch didn't. You know what I mean? But I happen to concur with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you add Messi to a team at the 6, he's going to make you better, right? Like if you don't have Messi and you don't have Mbappe, right? I just can't look at that performance versus, once again, Man City, right? We're not talking about Ajax. Correct. We're talking about Man City. Like I can't look at that and in good faith say we failed. Well, he didn't have all his pieces available, right? And like that team was being built upon the front line as well. And crazy enough, they had Neymar healthy for maybe the only year in the PSG realm, which is crazy.
Neymar, Jesus. All right, man, we're almost at the end of the show, and I'm going to turn my focus to Major League Soccer real quick. By the way, here's something, because I know that you're the old school New York, New Jersey Metro Stars fan.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, did you know that Clint Mathis holds the MLS single game record for most goals scored in a game with 5, and he did it in August of 2000 against the old Dallas Burn.
I remember
he
that.
He had a 5-goal performance, man.
Mathis was my guy, man. Like even before Donovan, like when I really got into this, like I remember following 94. I was 4th grade or something like that. Everybody was kind of into it though. It was like the hot thing. And then I remember at that time, you just couldn't follow. It was really hard to follow soccer in the States at that time. Sure, I remember, especially as a middle schooler, right? But I remember like watching the 98 World Cup being so sad coming off that 94 run because we just got, absolutely trounced.
Yeah, and it turns out there was a lot of internal beef going on with the 98 team. And then Eric Ronaldo and John Harkes, I think.
I got to high school, I got a license, and all of a sudden it was like, man, I can buy like, XFL tickets, right? We had like XFL season tickets for, nothing, right? Oh, I can go down to this Metro Stars game for like $8. Like, this is sick. Like, oh, like you guys want to go to the Metro Stars game? So like, that was kind of our thing. And like Mathis became the guy, like as that young generation was really formulating, Mathis was like the first one for me. The hair, just like the bravado. He was that dude. I wasn't at that 5-0 game or anything, but I remember that for sure.
Yeah, man, I remember, like it was really hard to follow Major League Soccer in those days because they were rarely on TV. But once Beckham came and literally lit up the MLS, that's when you started seeing them on ABC, ESPN. And then, of course,
you had to go to games, dude. You had to go. Like
you had to go to
people
games.
Don't realize that you had to go to a game and get a program because honestly, like it wasn't online really. Like it was hard. It was harder to find.
It was
online.
hard, man.
Like you weren't tracking stuff the way you are now. You weren't opening up your ESPN app and going to MLS and looking at scores. Like you had to hunt for this stuff in 2000.
And what's crazy is the Sounders at that time were still a part of the old A-League. I don't know if you remember that. They were a part of the A-League, and then they went into the USL before coming into Major League Soccer.
That's crazy.
That didn't happen until 2009. And I remember that inaugural season in 2009. As a matter of fact, we played the New York Red Bulls in the first game ever. And I remember that match vividly because the entire city of Seattle literally just exploded, right? Like I knew Seattle was a big soccer town, but I didn't think it was that big of a soccer town. And dude, they lit up Lumen Field like it was Las Vegas. And that was probably the coolest, experience when it came to MLS was, like from day one, the Sounders put MLS on the map. And then they had that wild string for a good decade plus of getting to the playoffs every year. So, it was unbelievable.
Dude, and I'll say this just to stay on that topic. Like, and I know you guys out west will say it still exists in a high level, high energy way. And I don't doubt that. But my God, those Seattle Portland games in like the mid 2010s when both teams were really, I mean, that was the closest I've gotten to watching a game in the United States of America and going, this feels like Europe. Like this without like a Mexican team coming here, right? Like with two domestic teams, like that was like really the closest the environment I ever saw environments get to feeling like a derby, right? Like a
And what's great is Seattle travels to Portland and vice versa. Man, the Timbers Army and ECS get after it. The only thing they don't have is hooliganism. You know what I mean? So it's not. It doesn't get to that.
And that's okay.
It doesn't get to that. Yeah, that's okay. But
that's an okay mission for America to make. I'm all right with that.
And that's, I mean, to be honest with you, man, that's what's sad about the demise of the Seattle Sounders because from 2016 to like 2020, 2021, you could have easily made the case And, this is a team that had won 4 U.S. Open Cups. They won a Supporter Shield, 2 MLS Cups, and I think they went to like 3 MLS Cups and MLS Cup finals in 4 years. And then they won the CONCACAF Champions League. And then just to see what it's become, man, it's sad. But that being said, also Portland has hit the skids too, man. So at least we're going down together. But before you go, I want to talk about Leagues Cup real quick. And I didn't watch it because I don't want to watch MLS versus MLS in a tournament that like is designed to have Liga MX. I like the idea. I like the what, right? You know what I mean? Like I like the idea of Liga MX playing Major League Soccer. I like that. The only thing is, for the second straight year now, we've seen an all MLS final, all MLS semifinals. And to be honest with you, it's going to run to a point where this thing is going to get completely oversaturated, and fan interest is going to wane. I'd like to see this being done every other year, where Major League Soccer in the off year fulfills a responsibility with the Open Cup, and that way you don't have to you can figure out the whole I never buy the whole schedule congestion thing anyways. But as it stands right now, Liga MX's teams really just take this as an exhibition. They don't, when San Jose beat Chivas, I was like, dude, you can't sell this on me anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is right now. For me, if they had it to 30, two 16 teams in each league, and you had 4 groups of 8, but half of them played the group stages down in Mexico and half were up here, you would probably get a little bit more competitive field, because Liga MX teams in front of their own fans, they're not going to mail it in. You know what I mean? At least the group stages will be halfway competitive. But I see this within 5 years. I can see this not existing, because they're going to run this thing into the ground, and there's a very good chance that every single year this gets worse from a Liga MX standpoint, because they're just going to phone it in, man.
I agree. I'll go one even more extreme, and I said this I was hanging with Will from MLS Moves and Fabian Rankel. They did like a Leagues Cup kind of wrap, and I jumped on for 15 minutes just to get my take. Yeah. And my take is this needs to be once every 4. Yeah. Once every two is moving in the right direction. This needs to be rare, right? Yeah. And if it's rare and you're telling me, yo, we were doing this rare thing, and it is going to be the competition that settles the debate, MLS, which Champions Cup is already there for us, right? But we don't get everybody in it. I agree. Right. If you could get all of 2 leagues together, right? Think of in college sports, you have the Big Ten ACC Challenge, right? Or you have if you could do La Liga versus Premier League, the idea is cool. I'm with you. The what's cool in a lot of these places.
Yeah,
but
it's great.
You have to execute it in a way that's going to make me care. And doing it every year certainly doesn't do that. I'll tell you that.
Right. I just don't like the fact that American soccer fans are being pushed to the side so MLS can try to rein in, American Mexican fans. Yeah. You know what I mean? That really just don't give a shit about the league to begin with anyways, right? Because there's plenty of my friends that when we're diehard soccer fans. I'm the only one of the group that pays attention to Major League Soccer. Everybody else is glued to the Premier League or La Liga. There's plenty of soccer fans in this country, that have to have a reason, and this very well could be that avenue if it's executed right. You know what I mean? They're doing this at the behest of the American soccer fan.
Yeah, potential, man.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think you're
all right, man.
20 minutes from kickoff here, so good luck tonight. And
thank you very much,
best, man. Yeah,
I would like to think everything will go our way. But that being said, man, when you've shipped 8 goals already to them this year, they pretty much got your number. Adam, I want to thank you for stopping by, man. This was awesome, and hopefully we can do it again. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Any last words, man?
No. I appreciate you having me on, and two, go Sounders tonight. I'm gonna watch the game. I'm gonna cheer with you. I'm gonna cheer for a Sounders KC final. That's a good one.
All right, man. My final words is let's just get this Mauricio Pochettino thing announced. So next week, Yep. Let's get this across the finish line so we can actually have him ready for Kansas City. And then we can see exactly who he's going to bring up. But until then, man, we'll be back next week. Thanks again, man.
Thanks.
Yep. Have a great night.